Hi, and welcome back to using visualfoxpro.com. In this session, I want to take a brief look at set commands. And set commands affects the operation of Visual Fox Pro. I think of it, or I'd like to think of it, as setting the Visual Fox Pro working environment. In the video on the interface tour, we went to tools and options, and we saw that there are a few options that we can set from within this options dialog. But these same options also can be turned on or off using set commands. At least most of them can. For example, the status bar, the clock, command results, system messages, warning sounds. These options over here, these options here can all be set, turned on or off by set commands. And though they will not be saved as if when you click the set as default here, this saves it to your resource file, but you can turn them on or off, and you'll see that in code their set commands are used quite often to set the environment, to set things that, or the operations of certain values and commands that are operations that Visual Fox Pro will carry out. And let me give it a for instance. The set sentry command is a common one. If I were to print the date to the FoxPro desktop, you'll see 01/15/07. Now is 07 representing the month or the year? 15, of course, would have to be a day, all right? Or it could also be a year. And 01 itself could also be a year or a month or a day. If I were to use the set command, set century on, then reprint the date, you would have a better understanding that 07 was actually representing the year 2007. And so set century on shows me the full the full 4-digit year, the date, and of course we assume that this is the month. But again, with the set command, I can know for sure if I set the date format to be month, day, year format, and so it looks the same. I could also change that to show me the year first, and then the month, and then the day. And when I print that to the screen, I see it in this format. So I can change the formatting or the display of certain functions just by using set commands. I can, with the set command, turn the status bar on or off. It's off right now. With set commands, I can determine whether FoxPro will display calculation results to my desktop. For example, if I use another example, I'm setting the default working folder using another set command. Tutorial. So I open the table and I can say count. Now that you're seeing 8 records being displayed. One here, it's being displayed in the desktop because my status bar is off. If it were on, you would see the results down here. But this is as a result of FoxPro talking. Talking is turned on. So commands like count, scan, replace will report the number of records that they operated on or worked on, and that is where we see Visual Fox Pro talk, and that it is telling us, well, I processed 10 records, I indexed 40 records or 100 records or 1,000,000 records. That's what talk does. So by setting talk off, if you don't want this information displayed during operations in your program, you set talk off. So now when I count, I don't get an update on my in my status bar. And if the status bar was off, and I count again, I get no display, no talk on my Visual FoxPro desktop. Let's do this again. I'll turn it back on, and then I count. Then Visual FoxPro reports to me the number of records affected. So the set commands can do a whole host of things. Let's look at the current status of the Visual FoxPro work environment. We can display status, and here we're seeing these are things. These values here can be affected by set commands such as a search path. You saw me change the default working folder using set default to and specifying this path here. I can select this is for print device, the work area. We don't use the set command to affect the work area, of course, but the margins, the number of decimal places that are displayed when calculations are done or when values are displayed by default. That's 2. There are other settings there. Let's go on. Alternate, which has to do with the output of files. I'll go into the help and get proper description on all of these. I've never used or had need of using all of these. I've used the common ones are, for me, that is carry, sentry, console. I've used from time to time. Deleted is very common in almost all my code. I set deleted to on, that is I don't wish to see deleted records. I've used set device, I've used set echo. Set escape is a good one to have turned on, especially when you're debugging and you end up in a loop and you need to break out of that. You want to set escape on, so that will trigger the FoxPro suspend command or cancel the program. Set multi-locks, set mouse, set lock, and so forth. Let me turn the status bar back on. Set safety, for example, and I'm just going to run through just a few of these as I've said. Set safety is, I want to turn it on, which it says now it says current settings, so that's good. It's turned on. If I were to zap this table, and it says I must use exclusively, so I'm going to use it exclusively, and there are 2 ways to do this. I can say use my table 1 exclusive, but I could have also set the environment such that every time I use the use command, all tables are open exclusively. And there are times for this. It's not the norm. So I would say if I needed to do that, set exclusive on. Then I would use my table 1 again, and now the table is open exclusively. I can see that in the status bar. And zap, of course, will delete all the records in my table. So I press enter key. Now, fortunately, I had set safety is turned on. So Visual FoxPro will actually warn me when I attempt to zap a table, because knowing that once these are gone, they are gone. Unless I had a backup of the table, I would have lost everything. So in a case like this, especially when you're working in the command window and doing stuff, you may want to turn safety on so you don't accidentally zap a file. If you try to create a new file that clashes with a name already on the hard drive on your disk, Visual FoxPro will also give you a prompt saying, there's a clash of name. Do you wish to overwrite? So safety does what it says. It's for safety. I can hide a system menu using set commands. I could say set sys menu 2 and don't specify anything, and then of course the menu will disappear. I still have format because I still have this window open, so by default that is shown. And then I'll turn this back on by saying set sys to default. Bring the default FoxPro window back in view. Another one is the clock. In the old FoxPro days, the DOS days where we had 25 lines down and about 80 columns, character columns across, we would often show in our apps the clock for our users, and set clock would set clock on first and foremost, and then actually we're seeing a DOS style output of the clock here, shown in the upper right hand corner by default, and that's where it would appear in the DOS days as well. I could change the location by using set to and specifying in those days would use about 2570, meaning 25 columns row downs, 70 columns across to get it where we need it to be in the DOS resolution, and that of course takes it in the middle of my my command window. So I'll move that out of there, and so it's updating. And even if I clear the screen, the clock will remain there in the foreground all the time. Of course, it's been updated to the Windows GUI, so we can turn it. I can show it in the status bar here. That's putting set clock, not to status, but clock status, and that turns the clock on. Okay, so again, set clock on, off. I could turn it off this way. Set clock on, puts it back. Okay, I need those two commands to put it back. And again, we're getting this in the 12-hour format. I could change the hour using the set hours to 24-hour clock, and immediately you see the time changes to the military time, and I prefer, of course, the civilian time. Okay, so there's a host of environment and settings that we can affect with set commands, and for this you really want to check out the help. So help set, let's see what we can find here, and let's see, let's scroll down. Okay, this says set command overview, so this is where we want to go. And here now we got a whole list. So it says the set commands perform different operations when used with various keywords. Set alternate directs screen or printer output created with a question mark to a text file, and set carry. I'll demonstrate this one. Set sentry you've seen. Set class lib. Set clock you've seen. Some of these are maintained for backward compatibility. Set console, set cursor, set database, and as I said, there are a whole list of things that you may want to go through, and I'm just going to look at a few more of these before I wrap this session up. I have my table open here, and there's a set fields command. I could say set fields to let's set fields on first off, and then set fields, and then I can specify the list of fields that I want to see. So any table that's open that have these field names in them would allow them to be seen. Any others would be hidden. So now when I browse, I only see those two fields. Not a command that I use very often, and to set that back to default, I use set 2. So now when I browse, I should get no fields. Sorry, set fields. Right, what I think I need to do is to set fields off. Again, not something I play around with much, but you can take a look at it if you may have need for it in your code. There is, for example, the set exact on when doing searches. Let me turn it off, and now it's off by default. And let me set order. Again, another set command. Set the tag. I'm going to set tag to last name, And with set exact off, I can browse using the key which works with an index that's currently set. And so for last name, if I put P there, an inexact search will be performed, and I can see everybody whose last name begins with P. Now if I were to set exact on, press enter key, and then I have to execute the command again, browse key, nothing shows up because it's doing an exact matching, and I do not have anybody in the database with the last name P only. Okay, so there is set near on for when we're doing searches. Let's see what I get with this. Nothing here. But for other searches, if I were to seek P and no find, the nearest one it found David Parker. So it didn't find an exact match of P. That is, last name is excluded, just P only, and so it stopped on the nearest one, which is Parker. So that again you can look into. And there is also the set deleted function. By default it's off. That's the current setting. So if I browse, I'm going to delete the two James. So these are now deleted records. At least they're flagged as being deleted. And if I set deleted to on, this will hide deleted records. And I click back on the browse, these records are hidden from my view. And even when I count, they're hidden from my count as well. So again, we can affect the operations and our outputs based on set commands. I can set the path with the set command. I can also, actually, I wanted to demonstrate the set carry, which I find pretty nifty when I want to duplicate a record in a table. I simply turn set carry on, and of course you see there are options there. You can specify which fields are carried over, but by default set carry will copy all the fields when I create a new record in a table. So if I'm just going to use a shortcut key. Let's see if it's displayed here. I want to append Control Y, append a new blank record. Now because carries on, whichever record I'm on at that time will be duplicated. Its contents will simply come over into the newly created record. So let's go to David Parker and duplicate his record. Say table and Control Y, and here now the new record created has duplicated all of David's information. And then if it's just a minor change, I can put Miller here, and away we go. So if most of the information is the same, we can copy those over. But you want to make sure this is off most of the time. So when I go Control Y and create a new record, it's simply blank. With carry off, I get a blank record. With carry on, it copies the current record into the new record. And just to wrap this up, one of the nifty things about the set command, there is a set function which allows me to determine the state of all these various settings. So for example, I can say what is the setting for talk. Print set, I use the function, and then I can specify now any one of the parameters. For example, carry, we just use that, and it tells me that carry is turned off because that's what I just executed. If I went up here and turn it on, execute the set function again, it will tell me that it's on. So what you'll find in most code is that someone would execute a line like this, C old carry is equal to set, use IntelliSense, set carry, store the old value, set it to whatever you want it to be, because you may not know whether it's on or off, and you set it to say set carry on or set carry off. And then in the end, we'll do something like this: set carry, and we do some macro substitution. And I'll be doing a video on this shortly about macros and macro substitution. So that will set carry back on, just as so basically this series of commands have basically stored the environment setting, changed it to what I wanted it to. I would have done some stuff between these two lines, between off and the set carry again, and then in the end I want to restore the environment the way I found it. And that's a good practice, not one that I always follow, but it is a good thing to do, so you don't mess with settings that were probably set by other forms. We don't have to worry too much about this. In the old days, we had to, we were really concerned about messing with the environment, and so we wanted to save the state of it and restore it whenever we did anything. Now that we have private data sessions, whoopee, we don't have to sweat it. But you may still, if you're looking at some old code, you may still come across stuff like this. Another way to do it too is to say if c old carry equal on, then you would do the appropriate thing, set it off or set it on, and so forth. Okay, and that's in a nutshell is the carry command. The set command. I did not go through all of them. I've never used all of them. The help is a good place to learn more about it, but you will definitely see them in almost every